What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. I know the game was 4 days away, but with a weird schedule, and your boy was on the IR last week being sick, we had to do this me and Lake conversation. I told Lake he could have the week off since he's on vacation. He said, let's get it in anyway. What's going on, my dog?
What's going on, man? Trying to recuperate, man. Hopefully some of the other guys got away, and just get their minds right. And that's what I'm doing. So, I'm ready to go.
Lake making the most out of his mini bye week. It is Dallas week on the channel and for the Commanders, but we got to talk about that Philadelphia Eagles game. Thursday night football. What is the immediate snapshot mood in the press box following that game?
I mean, look, I think everybody knew that they were going to have a stretch of games against two teams that have aspirations of getting to the Super Bowl in Pittsburgh, and then also with the Eagles in back-to-back, and not just in a normal setting. They weren't scheduled 7 days apart. They were 4 days apart. So you knew it was going to be a tough stretch, and I think most people were hoping and praying that, they could win both games. But realistically, if they could split, they would be sitting in really good position, where they didn't. And they kind of were exposed, in some areas where they're not able to finish games against good football teams. But, I want to let everybody know, what did you see yesterday? You saw the Steelers beat the Ravens, and so now that loss doesn't look so bad. That 1 point loss without Brian Robinson, without Marshon Latimore. And then, of course, in Philly, they let that game get away from them. Had a chance to take the lead late in the fourth quarter. Uh, you know, Selected not to go for a field goal, which I was a little surprised by.
Yeah, we're
But
gonna definitely
nevertheless,
talk about that one.
yeah, of course. But nevertheless, they still were in the game with these teams, Rio. And I think people have to understand, this is the first year of a recalibration. This isn't the end result. This is the first year, and they're still hanging with really good football teams, with opportunities coming up later on in the season to maybe beat Philadelphia at home, and then the whole narrative changes about this team.
Humble pie and humility was definitely served to our Washington Commanders fan base and our team morale overall. The game was a story. It was a tale of two stories: the first through third quarter, and then the fourth quarter. Because we walked into the fourth quarter of that game up 10-6, and then all of a sudden Philadelphia has an offensive explosion. But the main storyline coming out of Thursday is we got to see Jayden kind of stink it up for the first time all season. Everybody, all quarterbacks have a bad performance. Come on now, Mahomes has 11 picks this year, which is crazy. And now they're going to finally talk about it since they lost the game yesterday. But Jayden finally played a bad football game. You can let people look at the box score and tell you he played bad versus Tampa and Pittsburgh. He did not play bad in those games. He actually played pretty bad versus Philadelphia. And the offense, even if they gave us like a C- performance, this feels like a game Washington wins on Thursday, but they didn't give the team much of a chance. How would you what was your grade and evaluation of Jaden Daniels in the Commanders offense?
This was the first game that I thought Cliff didn't have his best game plan, and I say that because I even, tweeted out during the game in the first half, they can't abandon the run. This was going to be one of those type of games where you knew it was going to come down to who could effectively, consistently run the football, and it was the Eagles. It doesn't matter that it was Saquon. I mean, obviously, I'm Penn State alum, so I'm a big fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, they stayed with it and they kept hammering away. And then finally, you saw the big, plays happen in the fourth quarter. Well, that's because they stayed with it. And I thought for the most part, Brian Robinson, remember on the opening drive when they scored,
Mm-hmm.
talking about when Washington scored on their drive,
Yep.
it was Brian Robinson that finished it off. And it was Brian Robinson that had some nice runs in between the tackles. And they just seemed like they got away from that and they put more of the onus on Jayden. And this was a game that you could see the receivers weren't getting open. They just, again, they went back to the old Commanders offense, where the receivers were getting held up at the line. They were putting multiple coverages over top of Terry, and no one else could step up. There still were guys dropping passes that couldn't extend drives. So when you can't pass the ball and then you're trying not to run the football, it just wasn't going to work. And I don't know, man. I told my good friend Natalie Spalla on ABC when I was on there yesterday. I literally told her the same thing. I think what's happening, Rio, when you look at the Ravens game, you look at the Pittsburgh game, and now you look at the Philly game from Thursday. Is it me, or does it seem like they almost respect their opponent a little bit too much and they hold it close to the vest? Because that offense didn't look aggressive on Thursday night, and it didn't look aggressive against Pittsburgh at all either. Is that just me, or is that something that you see as well?
I can see it, but I'm not even going to hold you on Thursday. I don't think anything would have worked because the quarterback was that off. Like Jayden was
Yeah.
uncharacteristically off. Like that on Thursday, Jayden couldn't throw a rock into the ocean. Like that, he was throwing behind Bammers on in routes, on basic out routes, on swing passes. And I want to ask you, since you're around the team every day, everybody keeps killing me in the comments and in the chat because I'm saying the ribs are fine. He's healthy. He's just having a bad game. You're around every day. And I saw he got a little laceration on his hand during the game as well. Is Jayden not healthy enough to be playing? Because he's played through it since the Carolina game. So I don't want to give him a built-in excuse. And I'm trying to chalk it up to just having a bad game. Did he have a bad game because he's injured, or did the Eagles just have his number?
You know what, man? I don't think it's either one of those. And this is just for me. I can get in trouble for saying it, but I truly believe what's happened is they've gotten in his head too much as far as dialing back the, what some people would consider reckless abandon as far as his play.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't let players, who are that type of player who make things happen at all times. When you're telling them to slide, when you're telling them to get down, protect your ribs now because they are bruised up. And I've seen it visually with my own eyes in the locker room. He's had the cut marks around the ribs, which means that, yeah, he's still being treated.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they wouldn't trot him out there, not their
That's what I'm
franchise
saying.
player, if he was hurt. So I think what it is, I think it's a mental wall that rookies hit, especially rookie quarterbacks. They hit it, and also, yeah, I mean, let's face it, the last 2 weeks he's played teams with a combined record of 16 or 17 wins and just 4 losses. So he's played two of the best,
Mm-hmm.
5 teams in football this year, and they still were in those games with him not playing his best football. So I think with Jayden, he's got to get back to just, how he talks about having fun and being
Yeah.
out there and just doing it. He doesn't look like he's having fun. He looks like he's thinking now, and things aren't happening the way they used to happen. Also, he needs some help. He needs his receivers to hold on to the ball. De'Ami Brown had another big drop the other day that could extend the drive. And when you're not on and your guys aren't giving you help to extend drives and keep things going so that you can play out of your funk, nothing good is going to happen from that. And that's why they've lost 2 consecutive games.
I like where you're cooking from the mental aspect. I feel like it's, like when a guy messes up his knee and he needs some time when he gets back to stop favoring his leg or thinking about it when he's playing. I think Jayden is thinking about the rib on the field. What I'm
Absolutely.
seeing is a guy that's processing a tidge slower than he was earlier in the season, and he's thinking about it. There are plays where he can easily go get the first down with his leg. He's passing it up, or they're getting him because he's thinking about it. He looks the first couple of months of the season, Jayden looked like he was playing without thinking. The last month of the season or so, since the rib injury, you can tell there are times where he's thinking about what's happening. And the Eagles looked like they had our offense completely schemed up from the opening whistle. But on top of that, I haven't seen Jayden at any point this year not really give the offense a chance with his right arm, because even when you throw the legs out of it, you throw the running aspect away, he's been top-notch efficient and accurate all season. There were a couple throws that extend drives and that put Washington in a better place that he just didn't have on Thursday. And it was weird to see. And everybody wants to go back to the ribs. He shouldn't be playing. I don't think Josh Harris, Adam Peters, or Dan Quinn and company are putting him on the football field if he's not healthy enough to play. I think he's sore, but I think he was just off on Thursday, man.
Yeah, you're 100%, man. He was off for sure, and I'm telling you, I truly believe that he is thinking about being safe and cautious because when he runs now, he's running straight diagonal to the sidelines, as opposed to turning balls up and things like that. And again, he's their most valuable possession, and you don't want him to go out and get hurt, but it is football and it comes with the territory. You could be as cautious as you want and get hurt in the pocket. I mean, you could be as cautious as you want and get hurt when you're running outside the pocket. It comes with the territory.
Yes.
All you have to do is look at Josh Allen yesterday. How did they beat the Kansas City Chiefs on that last drive? He ran through multiple
His
defenders for Kansas
legs.
City to
Yep.
get in the end zone. No
Mhm.
one today is talking about Josh Allen running too much and taking unnecessary abuse. Yes, I understand he's 6'5", 200, 45, 50 pounds.
Mhm.
So he's outweighing Jayden by probably like 45 pounds. I get it. But at the end of the day, he did what he needed to do for his team to be the undefeated Super Bowl champion. And now today you're getting praised and talk about perhaps that was his crowning MVP moment this year.
Mhm.
So sometimes you just got to let these guys, just turn caution to the wind and play football. And I think that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, especially against better opponents, it's almost like they've held him in a box and not let him be the guy. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm on Philly's defense, I'm walking away from Thursday night's game thinking, this guy wasn't what I thought he was. And I mean that sincerely, not to disrespect him, but I
Mhm.
don't think they walked away feeling like they saw the second coming. Like a lot of the teams in earlier in the year felt like, damn, this guy's changing the whole trajectory of the league. Well, you need that from him. You need him to come out and play
Mhm.
football and have that signature win. Forget so that the Eagles and the Steelers and all these good teams, will fear him because right now they don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna just chalk it up to Mama told us there will be days like this. Everything is not gonna be sunshine and rainbows all year. Jaden's allowed to have off days. He's a rookie, and he finally looked like a rookie for the first time in 11 weeks during the season. But we're going to talk about Jayden some more in a second. Our offensive line got their ass kicked on Thursday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. They lived in the backfield. They stopped plays in the backfield. They were in his face. They were getting to Jayden on such regularity that I think Jayden was starting to feel pressure when he wasn't there. So the proverbial seeing ghosts, you were watching it take place in real time. 2 sacks allowed, 12 quarterback hurries, 14 quarterback pressures. That also helps to a quarterback having an off day when he doesn't feel like he can hit his back leg and step into a throw. Tyler Biotish and Andrew Wiley had a 74 and 63 grade, but Cosme, Coleman, and Allegretti, 13, 27, and 16 PFF grade, which is not the end all be all for me. But the eye test told anybody who was watching that D line knew exactly what we were doing, and they whooped our ass on Thursday.
Yeah, man. I mean, they came in with a great game plan, and it was pick your poison with Jayden. Are we going to keep him in the pocket? And basically, what they did was they took a page out of Pittsburgh's book, and you knew that was going to happen. Finally, somebody had the ultimate game plan
Yep.
to neutralize what this kid does well, and clearly, Vic Fangio and these guys in Philadelphia said, "Listen, whatever Mike Tomlin and crew did against in Pittsburgh, Northwest Stadium against Pittsburgh, and at work, we're going to do the same thing." And everyone, the Cowboys, are going to do the same thing this week. They're going to find the same, game plan. And now, if you're Jayden, you have to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more assertive. And this was also one of the first times where the offensive line looked a little beat up and battered. And again, you have to understand playing a physical football game like they played, almost 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, to follow that up 4 days later against Philadelphia, a divisional game where it's going to be equally as physical. That's a tough task for a football team that's still
It
trying
is.
to find just how good are they. So it was just a daunting task across the board. And that offensive line looked really tired. Brandon Coleman struggled a lot. Don't get me wrong, the Eagles have a great front four, man. I mean, Nolan Harris, I mean, and all these Nolan Smith and all these guys, they're there and they're going to
Jalen
bring it.
Carter was,
Carter and all of them, exactly. They're
yeah.
going to bring it every play. And you saw them wear that offensive line down.
They were in Jaden's hip pocket the entire day. Washington's run game, it was B Rob or die. He had 16 carries for 63 yards, punched it in the end zone. You could definitely see what the offense was missing when he wasn't on the field versus the Ravens and versus the Steelers. You definitely see that added element when he's back on the field. But just like the Steelers did, there was none of that running stuff happening for 5, and there were not a lot of extend the play opportunities there for Jayden and the offense to take place. But a significant reason why the offense was not able to get a passing game going, their DBs had our wide receivers in hell league. They had them boys in straight jackets for 60 minutes. Our leading receivers from Thursday night, running back Austin Eckler with 89 yards on 6 catches. Zach Ertz, 6 for 47 in a garbage time touchdown. Third leading receiver, John Bates, 2 for 17. Lake, I'm 3 receivers down and I ain't named a wide receiver yet. What are we talking about? Terry, 1 for 10. Alameda, 1 for 10. Noah Brown, 1 for 4. De'Ami Brown, 1 for 4. I haven't seen a Washington offense receivers be clamped like that since 2020 when we were out here trotting out Dontrell Inman and company at wide receiver. Philly just had us in a headlock on Thursday, man.
They did, and they played physical. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I've always said, contrary on the other side of the ball, you got to give Washington secondary some credit as well.
Oh
Mikey
yeah.
still
Oh yeah.
played lights out,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what you want to see. You want to see a physical attacking style, secondary where they're pressing guys at the line and they're just beating guys up if you try to take off on them. So I think that was a lesson in what Washington is missing. This was in a microcosm. If you look at this game and you look at all the areas that we knew that Washington was kind of, getting by a little bit, where
Mm-hmm.
how long would it last that way? Wide receiver was one of them. I do like Noah Brown. Don't get me wrong, and I think he can be an adequate 2, maybe a 3 at best. In a perfect world, but when you look at De'Ami Brown, the drops aren't something that should be alarming. We've seen this happen over multiple seasons where he's had great preseasons, and then
Mm-hmm.
when the season came around, as the season progressed, he disappeared, and we're starting to see that now. And I don't know if they're losing confidence in the play calling to get him the ball, but when his number's called, you have to make catches. He dropped a touchdown against Pittsburgh. He dropped a pass Thursday night that could have extended a drive that could have put more points on the board for them. So you can't have those things. And now their receiving core right now looks a little thin as far as just the production that you're expecting to have with Terry McLaurin.
Yep, we're already at a point offensively where if Terry doesn't have a day, I'm not sure what we do in the passing game because he's all we really have on the outside. We're forcing guys into much bigger roles than they're used to, like as well as Noah Brown has done as the complimentary guy. He's more likely to be a wide receiver 3 on most rosters in this league, and he's forced to be our second option. Everybody got clamped on Thursday. Terry was getting clamped. Noah Brown was getting clamped, and the rest of the receivers didn't exist. Zach Ertz picked some spots late in the game when the game was already out of reach, but it was just an overall day of misery for the Washington offense, which now leads us to the defining stretch of the game. The Eagles finally break through and get in the end zone, miss the extra point, and take a 12-10 lead over Washington. And we get a stretch where we're putting together our first sustained drive really of the game, because on the only drive where we scored when the only drive where we scored, we got good field position. We actually finally drove the ball in the Philadelphia Eagles territory. John Bates gets a completion where he clearly gets the first down, They did not give it to him, nor did Washington ask to look at it. And this ended up being a crucial decision in the game because we went nowhere for the next couple plays and got down to 4th and 2. We lost yardage, actually. We did go somewhere. We went backwards and we lost some yardage. A couple plays later, it's 4th and 2. Best fourth down team in the league. They just missed their first fourth down of the year versus Pittsburgh on a play where Zach Ertz took a knee before the sticks. Lake, what were your thoughts? Because my psyche said offense hasn't done anything all day. You better score a touchdown here. I understand you going for it. The actual play call, I don't know what the hell that was about, but I understood the decision. What were your thoughts on the decision to go for it on 4th and 2 there, down 2 points?
I personally thought they should have kicked the field goal. I do, and I understand. Don't get me wrong. Best fourth down team in football. I totally understand why you would go for it and feel like you can do it. But I just thought that this game was so close, and the defenses were opposing their will. I mean, say what you want about the defense not stopping Saquon. A lot of that stuff happened in the fourth quarter when they were just gassed because they were on the field the whole game, pretty much. But they played well enough to win that football game. And I thought, had you taken a 1-point lead, now I understand you were kicking with Gonzalez, right off the street, but he has been showing you that he was capable of making field goals. He had just banged one earlier right down the pipe. So to me, I thought you kicked the field goal, you take the 1-point lead, and you play defense. It would have been 6 minutes left in the football game. I mean, sometimes you have to believe in what you can do. They believe that they could get that first down, but I always look at things like this, Rio. Even if you get the first down, okay, you still are in a situation where you basically saying we're trying to score or are we trying to take the lead? Because the chances of them scoring were very slim based on what we had seen the output after that first Brian Robinson touchdown. So to me, you probably would have been in a situation again where you would have been a closer field goal and maybe more time would have expired, but you still would have put the ball in your defense hands to stop Philadelphia. So to me, in that situation, you kick the field goal, you go up. I would think it would have been 16.
No, it would have been 13-12. We would have been up 1
Yeah,
point.
yep, 13-12. You take that 1-point lead, and you hope your defense can hold and get you the ball back to run out the clock. But they decided to go for it, and they didn't get it though. Bobbled the ball. Just the play call and then the execution wasn't there at all, just like the rest of the whole evening was.
I think that, like, my thinking in that situation, maybe this was their thinking as well, was okay, the Eagles are finally getting it offensively. They're finally figuring it out. That last drive felt sustainable where they took it down for a touchdown. So 3 is not going to get it done because if we take a 13-12 lead, they're about to score and be up either 19 or 20-12, but that still makes it a 1-possession game. But we feel like on the road, it's kind of like that decision to go for 2 if you get a game-tying situation in the waning minutes of a game on the road. So I understood that. What the hell was the play call, though, Lake? Because it looked discombobulated, it looked dead on arrival, and it looked like not too many guys were on the same page there.
No, a matter of fact, when you go back and look at the film and look at it from Jaden's perspective, the quarterback view, no one was open either. So even after he bobbled it, there was just no one to go to. So he had to try to run and do something. Again, he's running to the sidelines now, which kind of leads me to believe that he didn't want to have to tuck it and go upfield, and he still took a shot. So it was poor execution, and
that was the only option to tuck it and go up. It's 4-2.
That was it. That was it. I mean, it was just, again, man, they looked like a mentally tired team on Thursday. Like they just mentally weren't in Philadelphia. And you could tell, like to get away, guys being able to get 4 or 5 days away and come back, on Monday for film and then literally practice again on Wednesday. They needed all these days, man, just to get themselves ready and understand that they still have everything in front of them that they're playing for. So it's not a moot point for them right now. I mean, this isn't a bad football team. It's still, I keep trying to tell people, it's a good football team. But what was proven over the last 2 weeks were they're not an elite team yet. And it's okay to say that. It's not anything bad to say that they're just not an elite team. Had they been able to split and maybe beat Philly after losing to Pittsburgh, I still would have said that they're a top 7, top 5 caliber team, but they're not now. And I think, now, but, are they a top 12? Are they a top 10 team? Yeah, I think they're in that category, and that's still very good. That's a playoff team.
Yep, and I want fans to know that we're allowed to objectively critique our football team. I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's the guy for the long term. I think this Washington Commanders team is still a playoff football team in 2024. I think they still get to 11 wins this season and break the longest drought in the NFL. But I'm not going to front to you. Thursday was very alarming on so many things, and like you said, he didn't want to tuck it and go on 4th and 2. That's for the game. That's for the game. So everybody's yelling at me, Rio. Stop saying he's not hurt. He's clearly hurt. I think he's mentally phased by the rib aspect. I'm not trying to get hurt again. I'm not trying to hear that shit. And it's making him hesitate. But the play was dead on arrival. It looked like Brian Robinson and Jayden were off on as soon as the play started.
Yeah.
Jaden's faking the handoff a different direction than Brian Robinson's going. I'm not sure at that point, was this a pass play? Was this a quarterback designed bootleg run? I don't know what was going on. And as we stand here, Dallas week, November 18th, the Cliff Kingsbury allegations are back. He starts seasons fast and it starts to go downhill once you get to the latter portion of it. That, and after a few rough weeks since the injury, now Jayden has some stiff competition for Rookie of the Year because Bo Nix and Brock Bowers are going crazy. Brock Bowers is doing number 1 wide receiver numbers, and Bo Nix is taking the lead in a lot of quarterback statistics in the Rookie of the Year race. They're going to squabble for that award now, Lake.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Denver has a tough part of their schedule still. They still have Kansas City again.
Mm-hmm.
They still have the Chargers. I mean, they've got some games that aren't going to be easy. And for my money, Washington, look, this week, just to put things in perspective, Washington's 10-point favorites over the Cowboys. They
That's
have the biggest
crazy,
spread
man.
of any game of this weekend,
That's
upcoming
crazy.
weekend. So that tells you that the Vegas odds makers and people really understand that Washington's a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to beat the better teams, as we said. Bo Nix is getting ready to face more of these teams. And yeah, he threw up numbers yesterday, over 300 with 4 touchdowns. That was big. But you can ask the question, who were they playing too?
I mean, the Falcons. The Falcons are a good team. No, that's a playoff. That's the team that's going
Well,
to win the NFC South.
well, I don't know anymore. I just don't know. I know the Buccaneers have had like 4 straight losses, but their games have been close.
And they beat them too. That's the thing, though. Knicks beat the Bucks too. Like
Yeah,
Knicks
yeah.
got some wins on them, bro.
Right. So Atlanta might be in a potential tailspin if they don't figure some things out. So again, good win for Denver. It's their defense that's also doing some things
The
too.
defense is going crazy.
Their defense is playing great. So Denver's one of those teams you may not want to get in the playoffs because they might end your season, in your magical season. And Bo Nix has clearly put his name in the hat now.
Yep.
I think it might be a little too late because Jayden had just taken the league by storm so much over the first 7-8 weeks. And I do believe that, he's going to have some get right games. I think the Cowboys game coming up will be one, and then he's going to get them again in Texas. All those games are going to be on national television. So it's his to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have performances like you did on Thursday night, you could lose it. I agree with you, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, I think it's a lot closer now. I still think Jayden wins it. I think Jayden wins it because he's gonna go crazy a couple times versus Dallas. He's gonna go crazy versus the Titans and hopefully the Saints, who they've suddenly found a little bit of mojo since firing their coach as well. And then we got to play the Eagles one more time at home. But that award that seemed like it was in the bag and it was clearly in Ashburn already, it's got a little murky as we got to the back end of this season because Bo Nix got more touchdowns now. He got 18 total touchdowns to Jaden's 14, and he got a couple wins versus over 500 teams versus the Bucks and versus the Falcons. So Jayden, it's time to lace them back up and get back to regularly scheduled programming this week when Dallas comes to town. But let's talk about some brighter notes about this game. Let's talk about no. Before we go to the defense, what was your grade of Washington's offense on Thursday? I'm not even gonna give an explanation. I gave him an F. What was your grade for Washington's offense on Thursday?
Yeah, I gave them a D, a D. I did. I thought this was their worst outing since Tampa. You got to go back to week one.
Mm-hmm.
Guys dropping passes, guys just losing their blocks, not following their assignments. Jayden throwing balls in the dirt, inaccurate. They all just had that deer in the headlight look. That was the first time I've seen them all year look overwhelmed
Yep.
by the atmosphere in Philadelphia. It was Thursday night. They just looked like they were, that they didn't belong on the field, and that's not the team that we've seen all year long. So I'm going to give them that one game. Everybody has one that's just really bad, and this one was their really bad game. I would hope and pray that they don't have another game like this, because if you do, then there's room to be really concerned. But at 7-4 right now with the Cowboys coming into town, I understand they're your division rival, longtime hated rival. That's not the same Cowboy team. And if you can't step on that team at home,
Yeah.
probably starting Trey Lance, if you can't step on that team at home, then you don't deserve to go to the playoffs. And it does a cause for alarm, but I don't see that happening. I think Jayden and company get right this week.
Okay. Yeah. I gave him an F because we're about to talk about the defense in a second. We're talking about a defense that held one of the premier offenses in this league to 6 points through about 50 minutes of game time. They held this offense to 6 points. And all you have to do is put up 10 more points, put up 10 points. Put up 10 points over 3 quarters. We put up 10, add 10 to that. 20 points puts you in position to have a chance to win this game down the stretch. And you got nothing going. The O-line got their ass beat. The quarterback played terrible. The wide receivers didn't show up to the field on Sunday. And it was a Brian Robinson versus the world type of event. Cliff Kingsbury was knocked off his spot all day. That's an F performance by this offense, because I know what this offense is capable of. But to brighter notes and better conversation, we could talk about the Washington Commanders defense. Did Philly end up going on an offensive explosion in the fourth quarter? Yes, they got their groove back like Stella, and Saquon started to dig our grave every time he touched that ball in the fourth quarter. But we're talking about a game where Frankie Louvu had 10 tackles and 2 sacks. He's up to 70 tackles and 7 sacks on the season as an off-ball linebacker, part-time edge rusher. He's on pace to do all-pro type things from the off-ball position. Jeremy Chin, for the third straight game, had 13 plus tackles. He's been locking up. But the story of the game for our defense, Missile Mikey Sainristil, the rookie second rounder who we drafted to be an inside corner, we gave him the assignment of exclusively defending A.J. Brown, and he went crazy on Thursday night. Talk to me about Mikey, man.
Man, the one thing that you can walk away from this football game saying is that this team's in good hands with their young players, including Jayden, of course.
Of
But on
course.
but on defense, everyone kept talking about and trying to figure out, okay, well, now that you traded for Marshon Latimore, when he does hit the field, he's clearly your CB1. Okay, so we know that. But the question was Benji going to go over to the other side and be number two? Mikey go back in the slot? No, Mikey to me has entrenched himself as a legit starting outside
Outside
corner.
corner.
So
Mm-hmm.
now you have Lattimore and you have Mikey, two physical guys that are ball hawks as well, that can track a football in the air, it's no coincidence because Mikey played some wide receiver early in his career at Michigan.
They did.
So you can see the ball skills; they're there. So for me, he's entrenched himself now. So now the watch is going to be, can Noah, play as the third corner in the slot? Can Benji even do it? Can Forbes? Can you get something out of him? So now that's the question. But I think Mikey, man, he looked like one of the best, if not the best commander on the field on Thursday night. I don't know who was. I mean, Frankie, maybe you can say, yeah, Frankie. Bobby Wagner made some plays too. Dorrance Armstrong made a play or two. But for the most part, Mikey was the guy that really opened my eyes because, the end zone, tip away that he had, great coverage. I'm not so sure if that's Benji, if he gets beat on that. So for Mikey to be able to do that, and I know AJ had a couple catches early in that first drive, but Mikey kind of, I would say from a Washington standpoint, that's the best cornerback play I've ever seen against AJ Brown, Mikey Samerstill.
We're talking about 5'9" and a half, 180-pound Mikey Sanders still. We've seen AJ Brown come in and smoke our boots a few times, man. We all saw what happened when we threw last year's rookie first rounder at AJ Brown. That guy doesn't get on the field anymore for this team. And Mikey, he was there. He was running stride for stride. He's knocking down passes. He has a trait that no other cornerbacks on the roster had. He actually gets his head around in coverage late. It's such a rare sight to see here, man.
Man, you just called it. You hit it right on the head. That's the one thing that you see. He knows where the football is. He can track the ball. The other guys, when they get beat, they're getting beat, not seeing what they're getting ready to get beat with, you know? And so for Mikey to be able to turn around and be able to track the ball and be able to tip some balls down, for him to be able to guide, that just had the most interceptions, things like that, that's not by coincidence, man. That's because he's a ball hawk. And I'm really excited to see how he and Latimore play together because I truly believe that Mikey's starting to get a reputation, and maybe you don't want to try this kid too many times now. So between both of them, they're going to get opportunities to break on some balls, get some interceptions, cause more turnovers, and I think that that'll help this defense even more down the stretch. And it starts this week against the Cowboys. I'm looking to see Mikey. Let's just say Latimore doesn't play. Well, you already know who Mikey's going to be on, and that would be a nice matchup too between he and CeeDee Lamb.
So is this hamstring thing a bigger deal than we thought it was? Are we not going to see Marshon until after the bye? What's going on, Lake?
Man, I would say a couple weeks ago that would have been crazy talk, and I truly believed that. I thought that he was good enough if it was a playoff game. I still believe he could play if it's a playoff game, but they're not playoff games, and they're games that you can win without him. Maybe not Philly, maybe not Pittsburgh, but they almost beat Pittsburgh without him at one point. The Philly game was a little bit more out of hand, but I do think that you can beat the Cowboys without him. I think you can beat the Cowboys bad without him. So if I'm Washington, I may hold him out, but then and again, he's had, since being traded to Washington, this will be, I think, by the time the Cowboy game comes up, it'll be 16 days, to get right. So yeah, man, there's an opportunity he gets out there, but I think if they keep him out against the Cowboys, it's more for precautionary reasons again, just to give him more time to work and make sure he's good for a playoff stretch run, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we got the stupid late bye, week 14 bye week for the second year in a row. But just something about the language the other day when I'm seeing Albert Breer come out pregame and say, they look at this like our first big acquisition of 2025. And that rang some alarm bells. It made me feel like, whoa, is he okay? Like, is he good for right now? Is he gonna play this year? It started making me feel like, I don't know. I don't like the way that sounded.
Well, we'll put it this way, okay? Who are you going to draft in the draft, cornerback wise, that's better than Marshon Latimore right now? Just going to
From where
come
we're
in.
picking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even I don't care if you were picking one. Who are you going to pick? I mean, the only person that you can make a legit argument that could come in and hit the ground running would be
Hunter.
Hunter. It would be
Hunter.
Hunter.
Right.
Right. So let's be realistic. They're not getting him. They're going to be picking in the 20s. So now who's going to be another corner? I don't even know if there is another corner out there I can mention that would be just as good as even Hunter, let alone Marshon Latimore. So when they made the trade for him, we talked about it. This isn't a 1-year rental. This is a guy that they're bringing in to be their QB1 for the foreseeable future as potentially 3-4 years. So you want to make sure you get everything out of your investment. And if you rush him out there now and he gets hurt and you miss the rest of the season, it was a moot point in the first place. But now you're looking to next year. But I think that they really feel like they're going to be in a playoff run stretch here, and they want him to be ultimately healthy Same thing they did by keeping B Rob out, for those couple games. And now that you get everybody back healthy, it just makes your chances that much better as I say, to join the Detroit Invitational, because that's the goal. To me, the goal is to get to Detroit. And if you can, steal that game, great. But realistically, it's to get to Detroit, because right now Detroit's the best team in football, best team in the NFC by far, and everyone's playing to go to Detroit. And I think Washington feels like they have just as good a shot as anyone else if Lattimore is healthy. So they have to get him healthy first.
Yep, Detroit, man, that's a whole different monster they got over there. Them boys feel like they could put up 50 on anybody in the league. But we're talking about a day where we held AJ Brown, no touchdown, 65 yards. He had to fight for 65 yards. Devontae Smith, 4 for 29. Dotson caught the first pass of the game, but he wasn't very effective. He's been a lot of what he's been in Philadelphia through the first 10 weeks of the season. The secondary, they held their own and they played winning football on Thursday night. But eventually, Saquon Barkley started to smoke us down the stretch. They held on for so long, but no defense should be required to hold for 60 minutes. That offense was going to break out at some point, and we were all sitting there waiting for it. That's why I was desperately pleading for our offense to put something on the board, because Philly wasn't going to be contained for so long. We had Jalen Hurts off for most of the night. He didn't end up scoring a touchdown through the air, but, he got his normal rushing touchdown, 221, 10 incompletions. How did you feel like the defense played overall on Thursday?
I thought they played really well, man. I mean, and you're right. They didn't get enough help from their offense. When you hold a team like Philadelphia to 6 points pretty much throughout the whole game, maybe the last 7 minutes, things just drastically change. But they pretty much had put a lid on Philadelphia. Philadelphia was moving a little bit, but they were having to settle for some field goals, and they also missed a couple too.
Yep.
So they could have had more points on the board. But I thought, Jayden has always been a Washington killer. They held him in check pretty much, on Thursday. I thought, that was one of the best game plans I've seen against him. And he was off, passing the ball. He made a couple throws, but for the most part, he looked very uncomfortable with his decision making. A.J. Brown, we just talked about, didn't go off. So you were just waiting and wondering, who was it going to be? Was it going to be Dallas Goedert? Well, no. If our guys could see a football laying around and be able to track a football, you have a forced fumble that Quan Martin punched the ball out on Dallas Goedert, but no one else could see the ball on the
Oh
ground.
my God, Louisville, I need you to not walk to the
Yeah,
football when
yeah,
it's on
yeah.
the ground.
There was also a pass to the sidelines in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken, and the receiver for Philly didn't see the ball, and it hit him, and it came up in the air. And Percy Butler was
Dropped the
so intent
interception.
on was so intent on making the tackle, he just let the ball just hang in the air right by him.
Mhm.
So it's things like that where you can see some guys can track the ball. But for the most part, I thought the defense played excellent football, except for the fact that when you're tired, you can't grab, you can't bring
Nope.
guys down. And Saquon's the ultimate running back as far as the elusiveness as well as the power, and you saw that on display late in the fourth quarter, where he looked like he was the fastest guy out on the field, which he normally is, but he just looked like he had a different energy level about him that Washington's defense couldn't match.
Yep, and he beat us up late, man. But it's the little things in a game like that game versus Philly. Louisville, you had a monster game, 10 tackles, 2 sacks. You gave Jalen Hurts hell all night. When that ball comes out on the field, you have to give your all and sprint to it. Come on, he's walking to the fumble. Like, what are we doing, Louisville? And Percy Butler, it's those little plays like not catching an interception when it's given to you. If you want to beat teams of that caliber, that type of stuff, you got to do it. If you watch the Steelers-Ravens games yesterday, the Steelers scored 0 touchdowns and beat the Baltimore Ravens yesterday because they did the little things that was required to win the football game. Washington has to figure out a way to do the little things, but that defense, they were after them all day long. They made it so hard for Philadelphia. In what world do you walk into the fourth quarter up 10-6 on the road at Philadelphia on Thursday night football, do you somehow think 26 points are all of a sudden 20 points put up in the fourth quarter? And it's very deceiving because a lot of that was on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, again, they pretty much did everything humanly possible, and that's two games in a row where you kind of had a team dead to the fire, to where you could see that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but being there and seeing how these things are transpiring on the sidelines, Rio, you
Mm-hmm.
can see teams hanging their head. And I saw it with Pittsburgh, where when they went down 24-14, it looked like they were ready to throw the towel in. If Washington, capitalizes on what it was, I think it was a 60-yard pass from their one to McCaffrey that was overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you capitalized on that. That's your play that puts that game out of reach. It's over. They're done. The Philly game, you had opportunities when you were up. You took the lead. You had opportunities to expand on it. You had opportunities to really, drive the nail into Philadelphia, and you didn't do it, and you just kept letting them hang around and hang around, and then ultimately, the best player on the field, Saquon Barkley, is going to come through. We talk about that with Jayden. If Jayden is no worse than the second best player, you're winning a football game, or you're going to be in the game. But Jayden wasn't the second best player on the field Thursday night. He probably was the fourth or fifth, maybe even sixth best player on the field that night. Most of the best players on the field, unfortunately, had green and silver on. So that's what happened.
Yeah, that is exactly what happened, man. Our defense, we're getting really good safety play. Jeremy Chin wants a contract as bad as I've seen someone want a contract here. That guy flies around and he has so much more range than I thought he had.
Oh yeah, he looks like the Jeremy Chin that finished runner up to Chase Young for Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Back in what was it, 2020.
Yep.
So he's young. He's probably playing the best football of his career. He's playing Pro Bowl caliber football right now. He truly is.
Mm-hmm.
So now you look at what was supposed to be, a weakness for this team. If you get Lattimore on the field, Lattimore, Mikey Sammerstill, who we just gave flowers to, and then of course Quan Martin's playing great ball, forced the fumble that no one could pick up, and then Jeremy Chin back there as well. Now this thing looks really good, and everybody's playing really good football at the same time. So to me, right now I think Jeremy Chin, I think Bobby Wagner, they're standing out. But you also have Dante Fowler, who's on pace to have over double-digit sacks. Dorrance Armstrong, continues to make plays. So the defense finally did their part. And did we ever think we were going to say this during this season, at least, Rio, that the offense has failed them over the last 2 weeks?
Yep, the Dorrance Armstrong, he has a lot of Montez Sweat in his game where he's always in the vicinity of the quarterback, but he just does not always finish once he gets
Finished.
there. But he's giving pressure on a consistent basis. We're about to have two guys with double-digit sacks this year between Louvu and Fowler. Adam Peters absolutely cooked up in his first free agency as the GM of this team, but as I look at the defense in a whole right now, there was a weird section of the game where St. Juice came out for a little bit, and they brought Michael Davis in to check AJ Brown. What was that about?
Just different looks, man. I think Philly's one of those physical teams, man, and the route concepts that they run to stretch you. So I think sometimes the corners might be fatigued, might be a little tired or whatever. So they just wanted to spell them, and I don't think Benji was playing bad. I think he played really good football game. He did. If you go back and look at the tape, that was one of his better games this year. I know he got beat a couple times by AJ early, but Mikey did too. But then they all collectively seem to have bottled up the Eagles' passing game. It was just unfortunately for them, we saw them chasing Saquon because he was gashing the front for Washington, the front seven.
And Mikey just looked like the best player on the field for him. Him and Luvu and Chen, they absolutely had a day. But overall, how would you grade Washington's defensive performance? It's almost like you got to give them two grades. You got to give them a first quarter through third quarter grade and a fourth quarter grade when they had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, this one was tough, man. For me, I was thinking at one point, I was thinking we were going to come on the show and I was going to give them a B plus grade and, led them to a win, even though the offense played ugly. Well, that didn't happen. So I'm gonna give the defense just a B. And I thought about B minus because of the way the fourth quarter ended. But you just can't put a defense in position like that to be on the field. If you look at the time of possession in this game, the Eagles owned it. So the defense was on the field quite a bit. You have to come up with the fumble recoveries. You have to come up with the opportunities when they present themselves. But I think if you look at overall, you look at Jaden Hurts, he didn't look comfortable all night. He really didn't. You look at AJ Brown, he didn't look like the normal AJ Brown you see too, and Devonta Smith didn't either. Did neither. So for me, I'm giving the defense a solid B. I know people could say, "Oh no, they didn't play that great," but I think they did. I think they played well enough to win that football game.
They did. They did more than enough to win the game. And you you hold one of the top offenses in the league and one of the hottest offenses in the entire league to 6 points through three quarters. Your team has no excuse not to be
On the
winning
road.
that game. You're on the road on Thursday night football for the whole world to see. Knowing what our offense is capable of, we should have been we shouldn't be dogging the Eagles on Thursday. But they ended up down the stretch, letting Saquon get his stuff off and Jalen Hurts and company. They found their rhythm in the fourth, and it happens that way sometimes, which leads us into Dallas week. Washington is about a 10-point favorite versus Dallas. I believe the last time they were this heavily favored was week 17 of 2007 when we clinched off of a Dallas game with Portis and company and Santana Moss. 10 points is a lot. As bad as Dallas is, should we be 10-point favorites this Sunday versus Dallas?
I mean, Dallas is about as bad as they come. I mean, I don't know who's worse, them or the Jets, but Dallas is bad. And the one thing that they aren't doing well is even on the other side of the ball. Just as bad as the offense is, the defense isn't doing much either. And you can run on them, and that's where Washington has to get right. They have to establish their run game again. Get Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols in there. Get these guys going again, because when they were running the football effectively, guess who else benefited? Jayden did, and then you saw him be more versatile where he wasn't put in a box. So I think that that's what they're going to have to do against Dallas, and Dallas is the prime candidate, prime opponent to be able to do those things against. So yeah, I think that 10 points is probably right. I understand they're a rival, and probably will be some Cowboy fans in Northwest Stadium on Sunday. But if you're Washington and you're trying to go anywhere this year, this is, again, is something that they have done. So say what you want about them not finishing against good teams, really good teams. Well, bad teams, they've stepped on bad teams, and especially at home. You remember the Cleveland game and what they did to them. You remember when they went out to Arizona and stepped on them, and now Arizona looks like a good football team. So I think if you're Washington, you're coming home. You've had two really good opponents that, two of the better teams in all of football. And now you're playing against one of the worst teams in football who's going to probably be starting a new quarterback. You got to jump on these guys early. You got to have this game over with by halftime.
Yep, there's two ways to look at it. It's like one, it's a divisional game, and divisional games can get ugly. Divisional games can be muck it up like, and you never want to overlook a divisional opponent. We saw the Browns versus the Ravens a few weeks back, the Saints versus the Falcons, etc. But the other way I see it is, if this team is as good as I think they are right now, if they want to talk about 11 wins, if they want to talk about hosting or playing in a playoff game this year, you do not lose to Cooper Rush or Trey Lance in this whatever iteration of Dallas that exists right now. That's a bad football team. And how damning would it be if we lost to these guys on Sunday?
Well, the other thing that would be damning about it would be one of the reasons why I do think it's as high as it is, the point spread, is because of Dan Quinn and Joe Witt.
Yep.
So they know that with Joe Witt and Quinn, that they know what Dallas's offensive personnel is. They know what Mike McCarthy and company's trying to execute on the offensive side of the ball, and Dallas just won't be able to do it with all the injuries that they have. CeeDee Lamb's even beat up. So this is a game that if you're Washington, you got to win it. You got to win it. And I don't care how you win it. I mean, if you win it 17-16, you got to win the game, to live to fight another day. But I do believe that if you want to be a team that thinks that they're going to be a team that can go into the playoffs and potentially, and I heard you say it and cut it off, but no, let's say it, host a home playoff game.
Mhm.
Yeah, that should be your goal because you're still in position to do that. And you're still in position to win the division. Ironically, Philly still has some games coming up that they
Mhm.
very well could have a tight one with.
They
So
got the Steelers and the Ravens on the schedule.
absolutely. So if you're Washington, if you win out, let's just say you do what I think you're capable of doing, and that's splitting with the Eagles. You lost one there Thursday. You come home and beat them in what 2-3 weeks.
Mhm.
Rest of that schedule, man, you got the Titans, who you should beat. You have the Cowboys twice, who you should beat.
The
Um,
Saints.
you have the Saints, with Spencer Rattler, as your Rattler is your quarterback down there. It's not Derek Carr, so you should beat them. And then, of course, the Falcons. The Falcons right now are in a little bit
I
of
mean, Carr back though. Carr
oh
back, or
yeah,
did he? Yeah,
yeah.
Carr's back, and they found a little bit of rhythm since he got back.
Okay, yeah, but you know what? Hopefully, Lattimore can give them some intel,
Hmm.
something. That.
No,
But let's just face it; they should be the better team against the Saints. These are games that in years past you would fear to just win, be competitive in, but they've shown this year that they can beat bad football teams or teams that are above 500. They've had their struggles with, but teams that are under 500, they've actually stepped on those teams, and I'd like to think that at least that trend continues, but we'll know Sunday. Sunday is going to say a lot about this team, where
hmm
they are mentally, if they're tired, if they're fatigued, if they're starting to have self doubt. You're going to learn a lot about this team Sunday because if they come out and they're sluggish and they don't perform well, and let's just say they do win, but it's a close nail biter, that's not good. If they lose the football game, then that's clearly not good. But if they come back out and play the type of football we think they're capable of playing from what they've shown us, the big explosive plays, if Jayden can do his thing, if they can run the ball, and if they can just pretty much stifle Dallas at home, the defense plays way better than they do on the road. I think they beat the Cowboys by more than 10 and they hold that spread.
Yeah, man, this is our main op, our rival, our arch nemesis, and sometimes you got to kick folks while they're down.
Got kicked.
Sometimes you got to kick their back in while they're down. And I need Jayden to have a now let me reintroduce myself. I'm the rookie of the year. I need him to go out and look like the guy he's looked like for the majority of this season. I need us to smoke Dallas on Sunday because I don't want to live in a world where we're playing a close game or end up losing to this Dallas team and going from 7-2 to 7-5 because the sky's gonna fall. And for the soul and sanctity of this fan base, we need to smoke Dallas on Sunday. Get to 8-4 and keep this thing rolling because we gave over this last week. We knew how tough it was going to be with the Steelers and the Eagles, two loss football teams, but we invited the fraud conversation. Washington hasn't beat nobody. That has happened all year. You had the week where if you just win one of those two games, you could rectify and have a retort to that argument. Losing both of those games in the fashion in which they happen, it gives people newfound arguments to say Washington is a fraud.
I totally agree. And you know what? For me, I'm so tired of that kind of narrative
Mm-hmm.
because I'm dealing with my school, Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
It's they
Yep.
can't beat Ohio State, but they beat everybody else. I mean, they're 9-1, and people are saying that they can't beat anybody. No, Washington is again, they're a good football team. They're a playoff worthy caliber football team, but they don't want to just be that. They want to get in there and do something, and that's
Oh
why they
yeah.
made the move for Lattimore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way you can do that is you have to do two things. Well, there's two things. You beat down bad teams, which they've been doing. They just have to learn how to get over the hump against the good teams. And they're going to probably realistically have two more opportunities to do that with teams that will probably finish the season, obviously, with winning records. That's the Eagles. And then that's later on, I think, against the Falcons. But against the Cowboys, you've got to smoke these guys. And Rio, I'm pretty confident and feel pretty good to tell you, my friend, you will see something you've never seen in your lifetime. You're going to see an 11-win season from this team.
I still believe we're heading on that track and that trajectory as well. I'm not gonna hold you up anymore, man. Go enjoy your vacation in that beautiful island that you're at right now. But on your way out, let folks know where they can find you.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you can check me out on social media, Lake Lewis Jr. You can check out my podcast, which is the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, right here on YouTube. You can watch it, or you can subscribe to it, via all the audio carriers, Apple Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's all on there. You also can go to sportsjourney.com, and then also you can check me out on ABC7 in DC as an insider, giving insight after games with those guys.
Yep, and you heard Lake. Mini bye week over. It is now Dallas week. They play a football game tonight, so if you want some extra intel on them, they play the Houston Texans on Monday Night Football. Washington's looking to get to 8 wins to go to 8-4 on the season after our first back-to-back loss sequence of the season. That is all I got for right now. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders, Commander Rio, and my guy Lake Lewis Jr. out.